Have I told you lately that I feel none hated upon? And I want this to happen for some reason. So, back resurrecting the series with why you should not do whatever crap it is that you're doing because you're a moron if you do, which is the best series on this channel because it guarantees weekly unsubscriptions. Yeah, I'm back this time, fresh from my other videos actually, where I told you why you should never do, well, I talked about many things, but the most important one is the one where I told you why you should never set up your guitar while having it lying down and resting on your workbench. If you haven't watched that one, be sure to watch that one first and then come back to this video if you're still alive and your brain cells have not fried past a 30% level, I guess. Mines are pretty fried up, I guess, also. So, yeah, this time around, I want to tell you why you should never intonate your guitar the way you're probably doing it at this point. And that means using your natural, harmonics, usually at the 12th fret, or even if you're not using the harmonics, people usually intonate using the 12th fret, and I will tell you why this is wrong. So stick with me because we're about to embark on this journey, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, let's go straight into it. So the number one reason why you should never intonate by checking your tuning using harmonics, doesn't matter where it is, but for the sake of simplicity, let's say it's at the 12th fret, we're probably you're doing it already. So the reason why you should never do this is because when you're trying to adjust your intonation, again, you want to adjust it for normal playing. So if you would only play harmonics, then yes, it would make sense to adjust using harmonics. But what happens is when you're actually fretting down, you're applying tension. And when you're applying tension, your string slightly goes sharp versus just resting in its idle position and being touched to create that note in the standing wave pattern. If you don't know what I'm talking about, check out my video for the natural harmonics and stuff. So the thing is, you would end up intonating based on a very unrealistic use case where you're not applying tension to your string. So you would intonate it, and when you apply pressure for the rest of the normal playing, you would actually have your strings go slightly sharp. And this slightly might not be so slightly, especially if you have a high action. So the higher the action is, the worse this gets. Why? Well, because the higher the action is, the more you have to press down against the string. So the higher the action, the bigger the distance, hence the higher the hand tension, therefore the higher the string tension, so the more it deviates from its resting position. So you have to always take into account the added string tension that goes into the string when you're fretting against the fret to play the note. So this might be neglectable or it might not be, depending on how your guitar is set up and how your playing style is. A lot of people unnecessarily press against the fret way past its point where it's making contact, which is actually called heavy-handed guitar players, and you're creating these ugly dips in your frets and whatever. Anyway, we're not going into this thing this time. So number one, never intonate without actually pressing down against the fret. So stop using the harmonics, they're only hurting you. Number two is, what was I trying to say? Well, number two is actually going back to my previous video, which is don't intonate like this. Why? Because again, like I covered for like 10 hours in my last video or whatever, I'm kidding, but close to 1 hour, I think, was the effect or the action of gravity on your strings, on your guitar neck, on your whatever. So the problem is that if you're trying to intonate the guitar while having it rest like this, unfortunately, the effects of gravity will make your string go sharp. They will slightly distort your neck. They will pull against your tremolo if it's a floating bridge, and you'll have your perfect intonation here. And when you go into a normal playing position, now everything is fucked, and you don't know why, and you think that your guitar is shit when actually your way of thinking upstairs is the culprit. So yeah. That being said, that's thing number 2 that you should avoid while intonating and setting up your guitar in general. So also one very big aspect of it is never intonate except when you finally did everything else instead, which means you should be prior to your you shouldn't be prior to your last step. So the very first thing that you want to do, just as a brief explanation, is you should have your strings up to pitch so that you have the correct string tension applied to the string. Now when you have this part down, because you have the correct amount of string tension, now you can correctly adjust the truss rod. If you correctly adjust the truss rod while not having your guitar properly tuned up, it means you're putting the wrong tension into your truss rod, because obviously you will apply a different tension once everything is up to pitch, right? So first, strings have to be tuned. Then you have to work on the truss rod. Once this is done, now you have to work on your action. And then at the last step, and also you have to work on your bridge angle if it's a tremolo angle. And after you have the action and the bridge angle all set up, only at the very last point do you want to touch on the intonation. Why? Because again, if all other aspects are still different than where they will end up eventually, you are going to mess up your intonation. You cannot mess up your so vice versa does not apply. You cannot mess up your truss rod adjustment or your whatever setup, especially for example on the string height or on the bridge angle, by just going back and forth with the saddle. Think about it. I hope I don't have to explain why. But vice versa applies. Unfortunately, if you do it the other way around, as soon as you have your intonation set up, if now you start fiddling with the string height, it's all done. Because again, like I said before, you're varying the string action, so you're varying the tension that needs to go into the string, because now you have changed the distance that the string needs to travel so that it comes into contact with the fret. So the whole thing, blah blah blah, the whole thing, unfortunately, or actually fortunately, unfolds in such a way that you have to first tune up, then set up your truss rod, then set up your bridge angle and string height action, and at the very last moment you have to fiddle with the intonation. So keep that in mind, and don't be a momo, because eventually you're an asshole with your own time, not mine. And the time that you could dedicate to the people who love you, and you could spend time with them and watch a fucked up movie that will also make you lose time. But anyway, that's no longer my fault, right? So yeah, what else? I'm sure the very last thing that you need to take care of when you're intonating your guitar is that you should, again, like I said in the beginning, you should never use the 12th fret only. I mean, not only. Let me explain and you'll understand. The reason why people use the 12th fret is because it's very convenient. Whatever tuning you have, you know the notes of the strings. For example, standard tuning, you have your E, A, D, G, B, E. And therefore, you're just checking one octave higher for the same notes. So you're going with your tuner and you're checking your intonation and you're adjusting accordingly. And it's very convenient to check against E, A, D, G, B, E, right? So, yeah. But what you have to realize is that, well, why aren't you adjusting your intonation using the open strings? Well, because if you do this, this is actually the normal tuning. So, as you know, that's exactly what intonation setup means, which is although your open strings are perfectly tuned to pitch, as you move up the fretboard and it gradually amplifies when you go up the fretboard, your notes slightly go out of tune, either sharp or flat, because you need to correctly adjust the length, the virtual length of the strings so that they match the fret positions, right? And the overall scale of the instrument. So, the reason why this happens is because, again, the errors tend to accumulate as you go up. So that's why you're not doing it with the open string, which would be just normal tuning, and that's why you're not doing, let's say, you're not doing it with the first string or the third or fifth or whatever. You're doing it with the 12th because it's high enough so that you can detect those errors and you can correctly adjust things. But probably by now, I got you to think, and you know what I'm about to say next. This is not where the fretboard stops. So, if at the 12th fret, the errors accumulate at a high enough degree, so that you can detect whatever small imperfections you have in your intonation adjustment versus lower frets, well, why not do this at the very last fret, which actually, well, again, look at what you're doing. When you're playing an open string, you're already at pitch, but it's completely invisible to you or the tuner or the ear or whatever that you have these hidden errors that tend to build up as you go up on the frets. So when you go at the second or the third, the errors are super imperceptible, probably 1 cent or 2 cents, right? So as you go up, because you're starting to lose string length or gain too much of a string length ahead of the fret position or beforehand, depends if you're flat or sharp. These errors start building up to the point where at the 12th fret you can actually see them. So going up on the fretboard with the intonation adjustment acts as a magnifying glass on seemingly imperceptible differences. Just like, for example, when in virology they take the samples and you have slight traces of something and it's imperceptible, but then they multiply it 40 fold or whatever, and now they can measure things and they can tell what the initial values were. Same thing here. So why magnify up here when you can actually magnify a lot higher? If you have a 22 or 24 fret guitar, at 24 frets, you're actually double in terms of pitch. So why not adjust your intonation using your 24th fret, where you would actually amplify the errors twice as much as you can see at the 12th fret. So at the 24th, you would see twice as many issues, so it would be twice as easy to really fine-tune your adjustments. Now, obviously, if you don't have a 24 fret guitar, Now people will start complaining. Well, I only have 22 or 21, like in this case, and it's kind of a hassle or a burden to figure out the notes. Well, you don't have to figure out the notes because you're adjusting the intonation, so it means slight variation. So unless you have completely fucked up intonation and your guitar is just incorrectly built, maybe you've combined parts for different scales or whatever, you or like a 24 fret neck on a 22 fret design body or vice versa or whatever, you will never go outside of your 50 cents plus or minus range so that it goes into the neighboring note. So what I'm saying is you'll always have the correct notes. So just press down on the last fret, whatever note that is, it's already the correct note. You don't have to double check it. You don't have to know it if you're, let's say, a beginner and you don't know exactly what notes go here. You don't need to know that. The notes are already correct. You just want to adjust the relative position versus that perfect equilibrium at the zero mark. So yeah, basically that's all you want to do because again, it gives you far better resolution for detecting these anomalies. So you end up with a far better intonated, guitar instrument, whatever. And you don't risk of having problems like when you're adjusting the intonation, obviously it's never gonna be perfect. It's also depending on how hard you hit against the string. Also, that will influence the strings and the notes going sharp or whatever. So this will never be perfect. So because this is not perfect, and you're also not super perfect, the tuner is not perfect, and maybe you're not paying that much attention, so you kind of want to put it in the ballpark of the correct range, but you're not super meticulous. You end up finally, you end up adjusting your intonation, you finalize the whole process, then you start playing, and still some notes sound out of tune, and you'll be frustrated. Well, probably if you would have done it here, you would have had more precision, which could have compensated your lack of care in the whole process, or the lack of precision in your measurement instruments, which can be the tuner or whatever, right? So you want to go for the best because it doesn't cost you anything. So again, you don't have to be scared of the fact that you don't know the name of the notes here. You don't have to. They're already at the correct value. You just need to adjust them relatively. So no absolute changes. You don't want to turn an A into a B or an F sharp into a G or whatever. Right? So yeah, that's pretty much it. And oh, by the way, if you're really adjusting everything perfectly and you have the perfect process in terms of adjusting your intonation, but still you have a lot of positions that sound just great, and one or two are hits and misses. So for example, it's perfect, 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 and then it's off, off, perfect, off, perfect, and then perfect to till the end. Unfortunately, your frets are the problem. They might have been damaged. They might have some weird dents in them. They might have been improperly leveled, and they lack the crown correctly at the midpoint. Or maybe, unfortunately, you have the fret slots cut at a very slightly wrong position, which might or might not be that easily fixable. You might refret that fret by filling in the previous slot and cutting a new one, or you might want to shift your crown into the directions so that it kind of compensates it. Anyway, that's already way too many details, and you don't have time for this right now. But I just wanted to let you know that even if you are perfect, sometimes your guitar will still have problems because the frets might be improperly crowned or damaged, or just they might be lying into the incorrect position in terms of where the fret slot was cut. So that's it for today for you, because for me, I still have to film a lot more videos in this outfit before I finally take a bath, and yeah, not good. Yeah, please feel free to hit a like or dislike, but do it twice if you dislike. Subscribe, unsubscribe. That's been happening a lot lately, and yeah, can't blame you. I see the content that I'm putting out, so who's to blame but me, right? So leave your comments, tell me what you liked or disliked, and yeah, hate, troll, whatever. There's no such thing as bad marketing and advertising, right? So bring the awareness to the YouTube algorithm that you dislike my video. It will bring a lot more people to the community. So until next time, yeah, I'll still be just as fucked up. Absolutely guarantee.